see me, Frank?
Yeah, I need a competent person on site to take care of the job, okay? Here's your walkie-talkie, pager, and a cell phone, okay?
Hey, Frank, what am I supposed to do?
Just make sure nothing happens. Handle it.
Hey, guy!
Ever since 1971, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, has had a scaffold standard in place. Yet scaffold-related incidents result in 4,500 injuries and 50 deaths a year. In this program, you will learn about OSHA's revised scaffold standard, the role of the competent person, pre-assembly inspection, safe assembly, pre-shift inspection, safe work practices, maintenance, and dismantling.
Yeah, that's what he said. Competent person. No, competent person. Well, we didn't actually talk about money yet, but... Well, you know, I just kind of supervise things, you know, make sure that everything's running smoothly, kind of watch over the guys and everything, and make sure that, you know, everything's running smoothly.
Hey.
That kind of thing. Yeah.
Hey, Tim.
Yeah, it's just
Tim, we
kind
got
of a
some
management.
toe
Hold
boards
on a
in,
second.
do we need those?
Yeah, hold on a second, sweetie.
Toe boards?
Yeah.
Yeah,
What?
yeah.
Did you say toe boards? Hold on, sweetie. Yeah. Sweetheart, hold on. I got somebody cut. Who is this?
The competent person must have the ability to identify existing and predictable hazards, with the authority to make necessary corrections. In most cases, the competent person is someone with a combination of on-the-job experience and numerous training credits. OSHA requires that the competent person be capable of making decisions regarding fall protection, safe access, and scaffold integrity. The competent person must also be familiar with the manufacturer's specifications and instructions for safe use. The regulation may require more than one competent person on each job site, each trained to oversee or inspect various types of scaffolds and authorized to make necessary changes to improve or maintain safety. The competent person assigned to stationary scaffolds may not necessarily be assigned to responsibilities involving suspension scaffolds. Whatever the policy, safe work practices are everyone's responsibility. So you need to know and follow safe scaffold work rules and procedures.
Hey, Joe, listen, I gotta go here. Yeah. No, I got some scaffolding arriving and I need to inspect it before I put it together. Well, here it is right now. All right. Okay, we'll talk to you later.
Before assembly begins, all components must be inspected. Damage or defects should be reported to the competent person, who will evaluate damage, as well as take necessary corrective actions. Planking shall be scaffold grade or equivalent, and should remain free from excessive splits, saw cuts, or any loose knots. Components should always match to ensure proper fit and be of consistent integrity. Mixing of components or dissimilar metals should only be done with the approval of the competent person. The scaffold must also be capable of supporting its own weight, at least 4 times the maximum intended load, and any load transmitted to the scaffold during use. The intended load consists of all personnel, equipment, and materials load. It's important to know your rated load capacity and never exceed it.
All right now, Herb, I hope you nailed those base plates down. Yeah, I'm gonna check them when I get back.
Safe scaffolds start from a good base or foundation. When scaffolds must be erected on soft or frozen ground, base plates with mud sills are required. Many scaffold accidents have occurred because frozen ground thawed during work. The competent person will watch for changing conditions and make corrections. A scaffold is never supported on boxes, loose bricks, or any materials that could be crushed or topple under scaffold weight. Cross braces should be of such length that will automatically square and align the vertical members so the scaffold remains plumb, square, and rigid. The height of a stationary scaffold should never exceed 4 times its base unless tied, guyed, or otherwise restrained. If greater height is required, outriggers can extend the base and serve as stability bracing to increase the base area. Vertical and horizontal tie-ins, designed to keep the scaffold from falling into or away from the structure, shall be installed at no more than 4 times the minimum base dimension, and then every 26 vertical feet and every 30 feet horizontally, and not more than 20 feet from the top. Any supported scaffold with a high center of gravity is at risk of toppling. Scaffold poles, legs, posts, frames, and uprights should also be braced to prevent swaying. Work platforms must be planked or decked as fully as possible. Gaps between planks may not exceed 1 inch, and openings between uprights and planking may not exceed 9.5 inches. Except for walkways used during erecting or dismantling, work platforms must be at least 18 inches wide. The working edge of the scaffold can be no more than 14 inches from the front of the building or structure. Plastering or lathing operations may work 18 inches from the face. If more working space is required, the distance should be filled in as you work, or fall protection should be used. Platforms shall extend over the end supports by at least 6 inches, and not more than 18 inches, unless cleated or restrained by hooks, nails, or number 9 gauge wire. In California and Canada, the requirement is 6 to 12 inches. When overlapping platforms is necessary, as in circular scaffolding, a minimum overlap of 12 inches is required. Wood planks should never be coated with opaque finishes or paint, which will cover up weak splits and other damage in the wood. Fire retardant or slip-resistant finishes may be used. Paint is allowed on the ends of planks for identification purposes only. Fall protection is required for anyone assembling or dismantling scaffolds. However, if certain assembly and dismantling operations make fall protection infeasible or create a greater hazard, fall protection is not used. Assembly and dismantling are performed only by trained and experienced employees selected by the competent person who remains on site during the work. Consult your competent person for the final word.
We added some scaffolding to what's already up there. We need you to look it over because, you're the competent person.
Okay. Well, do you think we should put any of those? Do you think we should?
What?
It looks pretty good. Good work.
Yeah. All right, come on, let's get back to work. Let's go.
Once scaffolds are in place, inspect the entire structure for visible defects and to ensure all connections are secure. This inspection should be repeated before each shift. 5 points to consider. 1. Check base plate and mud sills for proper placement and stability. 2. Check cross bracing to make sure the structure is square. 3. Make sure all connections are secure. 4. Check guardrails for height, placement, and secure construction. Guardrails between 38 and 45 inches high must be used on the open sides and ends of each landing. Top rails must be able to withstand a side force of 200 pounds. 5. Check platforms for splits, cracks, and worn or damaged areas.
Listen, you've got no toe boards to prevent anything from falling and causing an accident, and you've got no guardrails. If someone falls and hurts themselves, you're really gonna have a problem. Your base plates are not nailed in. There's nothing to secure the scaffold. You've got no ladder.
Well, you see, there's a reason for that.
Hey, Jim, some scaffolding just fell. I'll tell you later.
Can we go back to the ladder things?
Using cross-bracing as a means of access is always prohibited. Ladders, frames with built-in ladders, or stairways are required. Access ladders will extend at least 3 feet above working platforms. If you're moving between platforms, use attachable ladders, ramps, and walkways. Never cross over from one scaffold to another unless both platforms are level and properly joined. Snow or ice on scaffold deck should be removed or sanded. When wind speed is strong enough to displace the scaffold, workers and materials must be removed. Overhead wires are an additional hazard for scaffold workers. A minimum distance of 10 feet shall be maintained between energized lines and scaffold assemblies. Public access to all construction sites should be controlled through gates, private roads, or security personnel. The competent person continually evaluates the job for hazards that will compromise crew safety. Appropriate personal protective equipment shall be worn by all workers at all times. See your competent person for specifics. Tow boards and screens may be required to protect co-workers and the general public from falling or flying objects. The competent person also will recognize hazards related to excessive buildup of material on the work platform.
No, Mike. I don't want you going up there without a body harness. Hey, you guys! You got on your fall protection? All right now.
The 10-foot trigger height for fall protection applies to all scaffolds. However, additional safeguards may be imposed by the competent person, as with suspension scaffolds. A full-body harness with lanyard anchored to a supporting structure other than the scaffold is required. Choosing safe anchorage points is the responsibility of the competent person. He or she knows not to allow anchoring to vents, piping, electrical conduit, and other equipment not designed to withstand the required 5,000 pounds of force. Vertical lifelines, when used, must also be anchored to a fixed point independent of the scaffold and kept clear of sharp edges and abrasive surfaces. Lifelines and scaffold support lines should all have separate points of anchorage to prevent worker falls during scaffold failures. Suspension scaffold accidents are a leading cause of scaffold injuries and fatalities every year. The competent person evaluates the overall integrity of suspension scaffold components and support devices. Support lines must be able to support 6 times the rated load capacity. Other support devices, such as outrigger beams, cornice hooks, and parapet clamps, must be capable of supporting 4 times the load imposed on the scaffold or transmitted to it. Direct connections will be evaluated before each use, and support lines checked for frayed and weak spots. Direct connections and counterweights used to balance adjustable suspension scaffolds must also resist at least 4 times the tipping moment, including stall loads, and be independently tied back. Finally, the stall load of any scaffold hoist must never be less than 3 times its rated load. If, for example, the scaffold catches on an obstruction like a window ledge, the pulling force shall be capable of exerting 3 times the rated working load of the hoist. If the stall load is not listed on the scaffold in use, check with the qualified person who designed the scaffold system to determine the stall load or make certain the scaffold is counterbalanced by at least 4 times the rated load of the hoist. Gasoline-powered hoists and other equipment pose an unacceptable fire hazard to workers and scaffolds. Don't use them. Most scaffold accidents are caused by improper component use or poor maintenance, so keeping your scaffold in working condition is a priority. If you believe a scaffold has been exposed to an accident that could affect its strength, inspect it thoroughly for damage. The competent person will identify hazards and take immediate action to correct problems. Even activities taking place on or around scaffolds can damage the structure. Protect your scaffold from vehicles backing into a support leg, and control swinging loads hoisted from the ground with tag lines to prevent contact with the structure. Suspension ropes, fall arrest systems, and lifelines must be shielded from corrosive acids, heat, and sharp or abrasive edges. If damage does occur, the competent person evaluates the damage and decides whether the situation calls for immediate repair, replacement, bracing, or removal from service. Repairs are made by trained personnel familiar with scaffold design and repair.
Hey, Chris. We need to start disassembling some of the stuff back here. You want to come over here and supervise us?
Let's
so
go.
we can...
Site conditions and differences in scaffold design make hard and fast safety rules impractical for dismantling. Pre-planned dismantling to provide safe access and fall protection based on site conditions and scaffold type. Fall protection is used whenever it's practical and doesn't create a greater safety hazard to workers. Protect scaffold equipment, too. Don't drop planks over the side of the structure, since damage affects future load-carrying ability. Sometimes consultants and scaffold systems representatives design, erect, and dismantle scaffolds. Contractors on a multi-employer site may rely on employees of the general contractor or another subcontractor in the role of competent person. In both cases, the competent person must actually supervise the work and be authorized to correct hazards. The qualified person on a scaffold job is someone who has a recognized degree, certificate, professional standing, or extensive knowledge, training, and experience to solve or resolve scaffold problems. The qualified person who designs the scaffold system has demonstrated expertise, but may or may not be a registered professional engineer.
Hey, Mike, follow me. I want you to get some more training.
Training on what?
The competent person, qualified person, or scaffold worker all are trained by someone qualified to recognize hazards associated with the type of scaffold being used and to understand how to control or minimize those hazards. Everyone involved in erecting, dismantling, or working on scaffolds should understand the technology and safe work practices. That's why training is important. Know your equipment and its limitations. Make sure you follow all scaffold safety procedures and use fall protection whenever required. Take time to properly assemble, inspect, and maintain good working order. If workers get used to hazards that go uncorrected, close calls become a part of the job.
Listen, I
He
realize
doesn't need fall protection. We have guardrails.
no, that's a very good point. We do have guardrails. That's
Yeah,
true.
that's not enough.
I need a harness. You know
Right.
what I'm
Well,
He doesn't need a harness.
but the harness would
There's
be.
no place to come.
Starting tomorrow, you're taking classes, so you know what you're doing out here. Meet me at 8 a.m. sharp.
Yes, sir.
You're the competent person.
Now-
You give
What's
us
the
the rule, huh? The rule.
Hello.
God, you don't need a harness. for crying
Sweetheart,
out
you
loud.
never
You
guess what
don't
happened.
have
They
to
gave me the
hide.
class.